Welcome to this week's Commerce Connection TV show. I am honored to be sitting with State Representative Tyler August.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Tyler. I appreciate it. You know, one of the things I always like to do in the show is when we're introducing someone new, now obviously you're not new, but you know, maybe some of the people don't know you. Maybe tell us a little bit about your background, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, before I ran for the state assembly, I was the chief of staff to my predecessor, Representative Tom Lothe, and I was with him for 5.5 years or so. Previous to that, I interned for State Senator Kedzie, who I work with a lot now, as you can imagine, on a lot of things. But personally, I'm from the area, graduated from Bigfoot High School, born and raised in the community, never left, probably never will. It's the best area in the state. I always make sure to get that in with my colleagues from other parts of the state that they like to talk about the up north and the Dells, and I say no, it's Walworth County is where it's at. So don't have a reason to leave. I love this area, and it's truly an honor for me to be able to represent my hometown community in the state assembly.
Well, we're really glad that you are. Now, being a freshman, you know, being the new guy on the block, I mean, you were in the office, but now you're actually the guy on the floor making those decisions.
Yeah.
You know, I know there's been, you know, quite a bunch going on up. I mean, you guys have accomplished quite a bit from, you know, your swearing in early January till, you know, end of May.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you feel about that? How does that process work for you?
It's worked pretty well. You know, it's I think having the experience of being in the building as Tom's chief of staff has really helped me kind of hit the ground running. I got my first bill signed into law real early in the process, which was great. And it's been a really good process. We're moving quick. We're getting a lot of things done. A lot of the things that we campaigned on, we've already gotten done here in the first few months. So it's been an interesting. Obviously, it's been people have seen what's been going on in the news. It's been with the protests and things like that. But through all of it, through the anxiety and the stress, I'm still very much enjoying this, and still feel honored to be there representing my community. So it's really worked out pretty well. And as they say, if I'm still enjoying it despite all of the stress, then it's definitely something that I look forward to continuing in the future.
Well, that's great. And I will tell you that when I was watching the protests at the Capitol, one of the things I think I told you about that I was most proud of is right in the middle of all that hullabaloo, you actually left your office and went out and engaged constituents.
Sure.
Which I think speaks very well of representative government. I mean, whether you agreed or disagreed, the fact that you went face to face and just talked to people and heard their opinions, I think it speaks very, very well of your character, and I appreciate you doing that.
Well, thank you. And I think it's an important part of the process now. There were some times where it got to the point where the Capitol Police and the State Patrol didn't necessarily like the fact that I wanted to go outside and talk with folks, but there were a lot of people that actually came up to the Capitol from down here in the 32nd Assembly District, and a couple of them grabbed me outside and wanted to chat, and it's part of my job, whether they agree with my position on issues or not. It's my job to talk to those folks that even disagree with me. It's probably even more important that I talk to those folks to see where they're coming from, and they can hear where I'm coming from. And it was certainly a new experience. And it being outside amongst the crowd talking to folks was interesting at times, of course, but
Sure.
But it was I felt like it was something that should be done, and that's why I did it.
Well, that's great. And now here is I'm going to give you a toughie. I got some tough questions. I got you on the spot.
I'm ready for them.
All right. So the economy is struggling, right? I mean, you listen to any radio show or watch TV or any kind of news program. They're always talking about the economy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you guys have already done some things to help the economy. Why don't you tell us about that, and then maybe your vision on where you'll go with the Assembly to continue that process.
Sure. Well, yeah, we started out right away. The governor called a special session on jobs in the economy, and we were moving bills pretty quick, and that was important to kind of show the business community around the country and the state and of course the world where Wisconsin wanted to be as far as our economy and the road we were going to go down to fix our problems. So we've passed legislation to kind of cut through some of the rulemaking process, the red tape, adding some accountability to that process. We've made health savings accounts, tax-free accounts, to try and give small businesses more options with their employees. Maybe they don't have to offer an HMO plan. Maybe now they can do a catastrophic plan with a high deductible plan, but then put money in a health savings account tax-free to their employees. So there's a lot of things that we've done to improve the business climate here. one of which was Special Session Assembly Bill 5, which I was honored to. That was my first bill that I referenced earlier.
Yeah, you beat me to it. I was going to ask you about it.
Yeah, that was my first bill, and we had that thing signed into law within the first few weeks of me taking office.
So tell us about that bill a little bit, if you don't mind. Why you brought it up? Just tell us a little bit about what that is and what it does.
Sure, that bill I co-authored with Senator Leah Vukmir from the Brookfield area in Wauwatosa, and it was on behalf of the governor. We moved it through the process. It was something I had talked about during my campaign. It would require a 2/3 vote of both houses to increase taxes. And that's important because it shows the business communities, as I mentioned earlier, where we want to go to solve our budget problem, that we're not going to raise taxes on business. I don't know if you saw what happened down in Illinois just a few months ago. They went a very different direction. And we've already seen a few businesses from Illinois contacting us and wanting to move just over the border, which is, being a border community like we are, is good news for the community and certainly good news for the state. So we moved that bill forward. I was proud to do it, and it was a great experience to have my first bill signed into law within the first couple months of taking office.
So tell me about that process. I mean, as a layperson, right? I mean, I have a general understanding of that process. So you have this idea. I know you campaigned very strongly on, hey, I'm not going to raise taxes. You know, if I remember correctly, you said, I'll resign if I raise taxes.
That's
I mean,
right.
That's a pretty harsh standard you put on yourself.
Yeah, it is.
So you put your money where your mouth is, and I think it's great that a politician did exactly what he said he was going to do, and I really applaud you for that.
Thank you.
But how do you go from, okay, have this idea, to getting it to the governor's desk, right? Because there's a strategic process you have to go through.
Absolutely. There's I talked with Senator Vukmir. It always works better if you've got a member of both houses with the same sort of ideas, wanting to move the same things forward. And so we both authored that bill together and testified at a committee hearing once we got it introduced to the bill, testified in front of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means, and got that explained to the committee members why it was important. And there's some good questions from both sides of the aisle on the bill. Sometimes the bills that seem the easiest end up being the ones that have become a little more complicated in the process, but we were able to convince members that it was the right course of action. The governor, of course, helped us out. He was very, very supportive of the bill through the process, which always makes things go easier.
Right.
So we get it, excuse me, to the assembly floor, where we debated it, and that's where I gave my first, my maiden floor speech was on that bill, which I'll always remember, which was an interesting process. You sit through a lot of speeches as staff, and you never really get the feel for it until you actually do it yourself. So that was an exciting time. But we got it through both houses and sent it to the governor's desk, and his office gave us a call and said, we're going to sign it. So I got to go to the governor's office and be there for the signing ceremony, and I've got my pen, and it's cool. Exciting stuff.
That's really great. Now that's great. So we've talked about some of the things you've already done. What are you working on now? I mean, I know Voter ID just passed, I think, in the last couple of days. So obviously that's very exciting. But obviously there's more bills on the horizon. So I mean, any bills that you're working on right now?
Yeah, there's a few. Obviously the budget bill is the biggest.
Sure.
I'm not on the Joint Finance Committee, but the majority of my day is spent following what they're doing, searching through the budget bill is about 1,800 pages. The summary, some light reading, is about 800 pages. So just some light reading for us there with the summary. So we keep an eye on what the Joint Finance Committee is doing and how it's going to affect the 32nd Assembly District. As you can imagine, there's a lot of different priorities for a lot of different representatives and senators. So things, it's a long process, and so that's kind of the main thing that we're working on right now. But expect that to pass sometime in June. It's a few-month process. The governor first presented his budget proposal a few months ago now, so it takes quite a while to figure out how you're going to spend $70 billion over 2 years. So, but some things that I'm personally working on, I just introduced for co-sponsorship Cindy's Law, which has been done in some other states, that would give judges the option to require GPS monitoring of individuals who violate restraining orders in domestic violence cases.
Wow.
Aimed to try and give a little bit more protection to some folks, and it's named after a lady down in Chicago who unfortunately was killed by someone who consistently violated the restraining order that she had against him. So It's a pretty serious thing, and it's one of those things that you wish that we didn't have to do, but to be able to protect folks in those domestic violence situations is important to me. So we're working on that. I also just introduced a bill with Senator Frank Lassay that would give constituents of delinquent legislators that leave their duties without a leave of absence from the body, the House or the Assembly or the Senate. It would allow their constituents to take them to court back in their districts and receive and impose up to a $500 fine per day on those. And I really think that that's an important piece to make sure that members of both houses from either party are there doing their jobs.
Right, because those legislative bodies change back and forth.
Absolutely.
And obviously some of the recent tactics, regardless of how people feel about the legislation itself, they're elected to go there and represent their constituencies and have those debates and have those discussions on the floor and vote their conscience of their constituencies. And obviously when a section of them leave, regardless of party, it doesn't facilitate that ability.
Right, and I was really disappointed when those senators when the senators did leave the state, and that's kind of what drove me to try and come up with a solution to that problem. And I said many times when I was interviewed by different press organizations and constituents that would call in that if the roles had been reversed and it had been my party that decided that they wanted to leave, I would have said, have a nice vacation, but I'm going to stay here and do my job. Even if you don't like what's going on, it's even almost more important to be there to be the voice of the opposition to what's going on. It was really disappointing to see that tactic used, and hopefully this will be an incentive or at least give constituents some sort of recourse short of the recall election.
Do you think that bill has a chance of passing? I mean, how do you feel? Do you think that's going to go through?
We're starting to get some pretty good support for it. Senator Lassay and I just put it out for co-sponsorship a couple days ago. So that's co-sponsorship. We send an email out to all the representatives and senators in the building and their staffs, and they get a couple weeks to review the legislation and see if they'd like to sign on as a co-sponsor, so that when it's introduced, their name also appears on the bill as someone who's going to support that and help us move it through the process. So that'll take a couple of weeks, and then we'll introduce it as a bill and go from there. But we're cautiously optimistic. I've learned a long time ago that you never assume anything's going to happen in the Capitol in Madison until it's actually happened.
Until you see the governor sign it.
That's
right?
correct.
Like, no bills can happen until it gets signed.
That's correct. Absolutely.
Well, I know you've got some big plans. You're heading up to the Dells,
Yep.
right? Is
Yep.
it the Republican Party convention?
Yes, it is this weekend. Yeah.
And that's it.
It's at the Wilderness.
At the Wilderness
in Wisconsin Dells. Yeah.
So if you're going that way, or you're up there with the kids at the water park or whatever, hopefully the weather will stay nice. And
yeah, absolutely.
people can go outside, but stop in and say hello to
Absolutely. I'll be there all weekend.
Well, that's great. Tyler, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking the time to have me on, and hopefully we'll be able to do this a few more times.
Be great. Now, couple of just logistical notes. Up above Tyler's shoulder there, you'll see a subscribe button where you enter your email, and then you'll get an email back where you'll have to click a link to. It's a double opt-in process, just a way so we can make sure the show is delivered more efficiently. As a banker, unfortunately, I'm not the best at delivering that stuff, so I'm still trying to learn some of that technology. So that's a really great way to make sure you do that. Also, below here, so if you look below, you'll see a click here button to go to Tyler's legislative page, at the state capitol. And then below that, you'll also see a Facebook fan page and a Twitter. So those are great places people can follow you as well, where you give updates. I know in your Twitter feeds, you're giving us kind of updates, sometimes minute by minute as things are happening on the legislative floor. Very interesting stuff if you get the chance to do that, so I'd encourage you to do that. And then below that even, you'll see Facebook and Twitter and some other social media opportunities. Share this. If you enjoyed it, please take the time to share this with your friends and family so we can help get the good word out about the great work that Tyler's doing for us up at the state capitol. Once again, Tyler, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Have a great weekend. See you next Saturday.